Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Another exciting show and definitely another exciting guest. Today, we're going to talk with a beautiful young lady who has basically taken the bull by the horns. And I'm going to call it like it is. And today, we're going to talk about the importance of rising from the ashes, regrouping, and more importantly, understanding the importance of home ownership, or let's say property ownership in general. When you think you've lost all, these are things that you need to know to help put you back on track. So without further ado, let's welcome to the show Miss Tifffany Williams. Tifffany, how we doing?
We're doing great. Thank you so much for having me on and sharing my testimony and story with others. I hope it encourages others and just lifts and inspires people up with that beast mentality. That's why I'm here.
I like that. Now let's start out with first.
Sure.
Who is Tifffany? Who is Tifffany Williams?
Well, what I'd like to be remembered for is being that woman of strength that is an encourager. I think that's one of my gifts that God has given me, is to be an encourager. So I think for me, I'd like to be remembered as a God-fearing woman who loves the Lord and helps others just rise and create a new beginning. My book is Plan B, a career B, and it's Tiffany's tools to actually help people use those tools in those toolbox to go through life's valleys, to rise, to reach to the victories.
Mhm.
Um, and that's my life's mission. So it's to be able to help others to do that. So that's who I'm about, both in business, in relationships, both professionally, personally. That's what I pray I will be remembered as.
Let's start with this beautiful book, Plan B. Your life
Mhm.
wasn't always a plan B. Your life involved around being married, coming
Mhm.
home, husband, the whole 9 yards. But unfortunately, that took a detour where you had to literally figure a whole new Plan B, because
That's
Plan
right.
A didn't turn out. What was it like for you? How did you get from Plan A, which is the happy housewife and so forth, to
Mhm.
Plan B? Let's start with Plan A. What was Plan A for you?
Well, I'm going to take you back a little bit because I think you kind of need to know the backstory of me in order to understand how Plan A came about.
Okay.
So, so I'll take you a little bit back. I'm a Midwestern gal from Michigan, born and raised there, and I, at 8 years old, started performing. I sounded just like Annie, and that was the time when that movie came out. And so I had that same. I was a redhead, freckles, kind of quirky. The only difference in that story with Annie was I wasn't in an orphanage, so I was in a
Okay.
God-fearing, loving family, and they supported me along with my two sisters. I have two sisters and a brother, and I have to say that that upbringing really helped to support what at the time my heart was, which is kind of this. My theme is always just like that song, Tomorrow, the sun will come out tomorrow. No matter what your life takes you, there's always tomorrow. And so I really connected with that song, and I started performing at a young age. I went to Interlochen Arts Academy. I won scholarships. I started performing. So really Plan A was to move to New York, which I did. I went to the American Musical and Dramatic Academy, and I started performing, touring the world, 42 countries, doing off-Broadway show. I was Miss Scarlet in Clue the musical off Broadway. I was in the national tours, My Fair Lady, and then I went and did Grease Das Musical, which was the European tour of Grease. I played every part, and that's where I met my then husband on the road in Germany, and actually had my first daughter on the road performing. And I was all the way up to literally, my producer is fantastic. He let me perform and be on tour all the way up until she was born. And then 8 days after she was born, I was back playing Marty, and she was on the road with us. My husband at the time was also on the road. So life looked really good. Here I was, making great money, doing the, international Broadway tours, everything. Career was like, it was going.
Mhm.
And then I found out I was pregnant with number two, which, by the way, I was never supposed to be able to have children. That was not what God originally had intended. And then I found out I was pregnant with daughter number 2, and I said, "Whoops, okay, then maybe that whole wife, mom, stay at home thing, feeding to this is what the plan was." So moved back to the United States, to California. And at the time, I was actually working for Wolfgang Puck at Sony Picture Studios there. And I was one of his managers and got to do that during the day while the kiddos were at a Montessori school and raising them. And my husband at the time was started in this travel business and toured the world. And then he started doing that. And basically, we all moved down to here in the Murrieta Temecula area, bought a home. I started homeschooling them. I started pouring my life into them. I was still teaching music and still teaching at the time, private voice lessons and at a school here. However, I was really pouring into the girls and into that family unit and building that lifestyle for them, going to church and everything. And then the inevitable out of the blue happened, that my marriage was falling apart. And I was starting over, completely over with nothing. So did the whole DIY divorce thing, thinking that was going to be good for the kids, instead of putting them through, the 2 girls, instead of putting them through such a horrible divorce that I have seen others go through. I thought that was the way to go, but I ended up losing everything. And really, I had to move farther out to be able to afford where I needed to live.
Mhm.
And that's when that whole plan A was needed to be put, let's say, on the back burner or goodbye.
Let's back up a minute. When did you realize that things was not going the way it's supposed to be? Because up until now, it sounds like you guys had the perfect lifestyle. 2 famous actors and actresses. First child. Now you got another child. Were there any indications that your life was going to result into a divorce?
Well, I can be honest with you and say he was not an actor. So he was actually, believe it or not, he had other in Germany. I just met him in Germany, and
Oh,
then he was able to come on tour. He actually worked behind the scenes,
okay.
so he wasn't an actor. But what started to when he started building his business here in the United States, he traveled a lot more. So he traveled from maybe 50% of the year around the world, taking, it was a travel company. And so that's when I started to realize our relationship was really pulling apart.
Mhm.
I was, let's just put it this way, a little maybe naive to think that that unit could stay together. You really need 2 parents that are committed to making the marriage work. And you really need to make sure that you're grounded in having a plan and being prepared for no matter what life hits you. And I just wasn't. I was just riding that wave thinking everything was going well, but it started to deteriorate when I started to see the increase of trips, the increase away from us as a family, and that ultimately led to growing apart and
You
being
mentioned the
going
word naive, so I'm trying to take the women,
yeah.
'cause I'm pretty sure a lot of women, some women, may and men can probably relate to this. But what were some of the
Yeah.
things that you was naive to? Because when you say naive, that's a big word.
Mhm.
Did you
Yeah.
really know that shit was going on, and you just said, "Okay, that's not happening to me"?
I think it's truth. There's some denial there. There's some maybe not seeing the things that the red flags, so to speak.
Mhm,
Now coming on the outside of it, having a 30,000-foot view, I can see that there is a lot of red flags.
mhm.
There's a lot of also ego with myself, which I love. I say ego is edging God out. I feel like there was this need to be fulfilled, that hole that I wasn't filling with God at the time. I was filling with just pouring into my kids and the love that my kids were giving me and the time that I was spending and pouring into homeschool and all of those things. I think, and then teaching my voice students, I was so focused on that to fill the void that I wasn't getting in my marriage.
You said that you felt that going a certain way in the divorce was going to
Yeah.
be beneficial for you and the kids, and it turned out not being that. What made you? What do you think changed that narrative?
Well, I think I my goal was always to protect the girls from a nasty divorce because I could tell it was going to go that way. So I didn't want it to go that way. So to protect them, I thought the DIY, do it yourself, was going to be the way to go. But now that I coach other women and I help and I see them
Mhm.
and I help them get through this time, all of the women that I'm helping currently going through their divorces with children, I highly recommend that they get a lawyer so that they actually know their rights and they're really clear as to what it is. And I can say honestly, looking back at it from this side,
Mhm.
that you can protect your children actually with having a lawyer behind you and having a team. I think there's a lot of, let's put the shame in getting a divorce. I think there's a lot of shame in going through that also, being a Christian as well. You can think God's not going to love you anymore. So you're always trying to be a servant mentality for others and really trying to make everything just easy for others. Meanwhile, it may not be the best choice for you as an individual. So I would definitely recommend any woman really explore all avenues, talk to lawyers, do a little, research, really get to know if that would be what you feel is best for you to get a lawyer and spend the money, and then just to know all of your rights and everything, because you may be leaving some things on the table.
When you decided to do that, let's be real transparent because you're helping women. I think women and men
Mhm.
need to hear the whole truth and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Yes.
So with that being said,
Hmm.
you mentioned pride. You mentioned your ego.
Yeah.
You mentioned the embarrassment of going
Hmm.
through this. Could
Hmm.
those been could that been your mindset at that time? You didn't want to be in business.
100%, Andre.
You
Absolutely.
didn't know what
100%.
was going on. You lived the life that people go, oh my God. And you didn't want to hear the I can't believe she's getting divorced because the persona was you had the perfect lifestyle. And could have been that you felt more less, even though it's a divorce for whatever reasons, which you'll tell us later.
Yeah.
Um, notice I'm pulling it out. uh, um, you were still trying to protect what maybe you thought might have a second chance, which I think that's
No,
what
that's
most people do.
Well, I think there is that self protection 100% of trying to, this image that you
Mhm.
feel as though you talk about that vulnerability. You have to be vulnerable to be able to show who you really are. And of course, social media was just picking up then. It was, getting all the accounts and all that kind of stuff was just picking up then. So absolutely, there definitely is that. But I'm going to be honest with you. No one's perfect. I made mistakes, and luckily we've come through that as far as having a good family structure
Mhm.
and seeing our daughter graduate recently from UCLA with honors. So I'm going to say that it's been worked through, but during that time to go back, it was definitely that yeah, you think you want to put this personality out there that is, oh, I'm fine, everything's fine. And I think we have permission these days, much more. We give ourselves permission. It's okay to show the raw, real side of what it's like and who we are.
Right.
And especially if you're in the business like myself, to help women and men create and rebuild and build again. And maybe it's career B, C, D, E, just to keep on keeping on. And how do you do that when you've made mistakes, admitted them, and now you start from the bottom again as an adult with like change in your literally pennies in my pocket with my here in SoCal with AC. If you know anything about Southern California and the heat out here, I lost that summer as well. I lost in my car the AC, and I didn't even have money to get through it. And I'm literally scrounging, just trying to make it be okay. And I have to say that was when the Lord met me at my lowest point, and I was that's a story that I'm sure we'll share here as well.
Let me go down this path real quick, and I'm not trying to throw anyone up under the bus, because if you're listening, you're probably like, man, that was kind of a hard question. But
Hmm.
on the show, you got to ask the hard questions, because
Right,
she's helping other women, and we're not going to sugarcoat shit here, because this is
right.
real life shit that happens.
Mhm.
You walked
Mhm.
away doing it yourself thing. But my question is, and the reason I'm saying this is because men and women need to understand, just because you're going through a divorce doesn't mean the other party has your best interest, even if there's kids involved.
Right.
So even if he saw you going through these things, so my question to you is, as you was going through this reevaluation of life, because it's now setting in, where
Mhm.
was he at? Did he put any effort in trying to lift you up, get you back on your feet? What was that like for you? Because women and men both need to understand what happens with the divorce, and when you have to walk away with that, when you don't have, let's talk about your book part, the plan B in action.
Yes, yes. And I have to say, because he was traveling quite a bit, and so and because we had to sell the house to pay, we both pretty much on both sides started here. So when because we had bought a house, we had debts. After paying everything off and after splitting everything off, that's pretty much the bottom line. And so for him as well, although he had his career, I lost my students because I had to move farther away to be able to afford where to live. So I didn't have the steady income coming in. So that was the difference. And he was traveling. The support was, of course, there was some financial support there, of course, but was it enough? No, it's never enough. I'm helping these women today. I'm shocked with
Hold that
lawyers at,
for a minute. Why this is in my mind? Didn't mean to cut you. Hold that thought for a minute, because we're
yeah,
talking really fast. But hold that thought.
okay.
You're helping women and
Hmm.
stuff. But let's go back a minute. You had
Yeah.
to downsize everything. So I'm thinking, plan ahead on plan B and giving advice to the
Yeah.
people ahead of time as we're doing this interview.
Yes.
Is it one of the biggest mistakes that people make, is trying to keep up with the Joneses and thinking that
Amen.
life is always going to be a happy ever after? Now,
Amen.
if you're listening to the podcast, you're going to have the good and the bad. You're going to be somebody say, well, you shouldn't have lived that way. You never know what would have happened. That shoulda, coulda, woulda. So
Right.
as you're helping people with plan B of the book, how many people have you dealt with that have been in situations where they tried to keep up with the Joneses? They wanted to keep their appearance on the social media, and then later find out, you know what, my marriage is going through a divorce. Now what do I do?
99% of the time, it is that case that there is no preparation. Nobody wants to go into a marriage, and I can talk to you about how my marriage now, that I met, and by the way, I met him. He was going through the same thing at the same time. Our divorces were final 10 days apart. So the God definitely ordained this relationship. I can tell you that that relationship and how that grew to be completely different. But nobody prepares for this. You don't want to prepare for this when you're if the best advice I can say is to prepare try to prepare for what's going to happen in the future, but don't live your life with that expectation that something terrible is going to happen. But
Mhm.
also be prepared to have to actually start to think about the other parts, and to try to step out of your current situation and just have a narrow view of what you think your life current situation is, and start to think about building that legacy. And that's the future that I of my life, and helping people build a legacy now. And what we're already teaching with the girls is how you can do that right now. We want to put mortgages and real estate in the schools now, because that's the best investment on the planet, and you can live in it, and how you can navigate that now to build as a 22-year-old, as a 20-year-old, and start helping yourself now. So when you get in a situation, you're better prepared if life throws you a curveball, whether that's, addiction, divorce, whatever happens, that you can, or even health.
Mhm.
something happens with your health and you need to you need to have some savings, you need to have a plan. And that's what we're helping now from that experience.
What was your first order of operations? You're pregnant. You have two children.
Hmm.
You're divorced now. How old were
Hmm.
you when your divorce happened, roughly?
I was 40.
How old were your
So
kids?
they were about 8 and 9 years old, at
So
that time.
what
Well,
was
no, excuse me. Yes, they were, yeah, 9 or 10, right around there. Hmm.
okay? You're now, the household is now in disarray. You're raising
Hmm.
children. What
Hmm.
is your what is your what is your what's your game plan? You don't have a plan B. What's your game plan?
So I literally, Andre, I cried out to God. I sat on my steps and I said, Lord, I don't know what to do. I got a very low minimum wage paying admin job that was 20 hours a week. I just did everything I could to get started. And I prayed and I said, Lord, I got my first check. It was $100. I'll never forget. And I was sitting on the steps and I said, Lord, this is not enough. I don't know what to do. And I literally heard the voice of God saying, "You be faithful, and I am gonna pull this through." So I tithed. I tithed $10 out of that $100 paycheck because, and I needed every penny. And everyone was telling me, around me, no, 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 you need to hold on to that. And I said, no, I need to give it. And I tithed, and I hadn't been singing myself, my first love. So I went to my church and I joined the worship team. And I said, I'm going to get, pour in a little bit to me because I see that that's one of the things that was lacking, when you're in the airplane, put on your mask before you can help others type thing. That
Mhm.
would be my biggest advice. Still do something for you to help you grow in the valleys, even when it feels really, really low. And that's actually where I met my husband on the worship team, the first day on the worship team. And I can tell you, not even a month later, I got the phone call that said, "Hey, we're looking for a teacher at the school, at a private Christian school. We're looking for a musical theater teacher. Would you come join our team?" And I did. And that pretty much, those doors started opening and I started rebuilding then.
Mhm.
And I had also, met my now husband there on the worship team at the same time. And yeah, it was hard, but I tell you, I can honestly say, you know, I was in the ashes. I was down at the bottom with pennies to my name, not wondering what's going to happen. And, feeling that shame, not wanting to ask people for help. That's another thing that I
Mhm.
coach. It's okay. There's a time for mourning, and then there's a time to put on your big girl panties and get on out there. And that's what I said. I'm going to do it. Get on
Hold,
my big girl panties,
hold
get
that
on out
thought.
there.
Let me ask you a question. I know this is getting emotional, but the good part about it is we provide education on this show too, and this is definitely one of them educational moments. So let's go back for a minute. You mentioned something.
Hmm.
What do you think you got lost in the first relationship? Where was
I was
disconnect?
I was going through the grind of providing for others, and I left myself. Um, I was the trying to strive to help and be that mom. And I think a lot of moms get this way, where they forget that they need to take care of themselves and they need to be cared for. And they need to do, if you've got a love, for example, of writing, you need to get in a writing group. You need to be a part of a group. You need to
Mhm.
feel encouraged. And then you don't need to go out and encourage others. That's one of my tools and Tiffany's tools is to, if you're wanting something, then you should go out and give that to others, and you'll be amazed at what God provides and just supplies for you. Because that is one of the greatest things about this world is if you're longing for something, go out and give it to somebody else, and whew, you'll see that blessing come back.
You wind up getting involved in the real estate.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
did that change your project? How did that change your life? Along,
Hmm.
we know about your significant other, but we're
Hmm.
talking about generational wealth now. So now your path is shifting. That taught you that what? That divorce taught you what? That you didn't have nothing to fall back on.
Yeah, so that's a great question. Well, my husband, who I met on the worship team, my now husband, Paul, when I met him, he had a real estate and mortgage company, but it was just him and one other person, very small. And so he was starting from the bottom as well. So he just kept going, kept grinding, kept it going, and survived the crash, of course, in 2008 and all of that. And he was in a big company and he downsized, created his own. And so I was talking to him at that time. We were courting. And when we were talking about what he does, and my personality is obviously from theater, I just love people. It's about relationship. And so it seemed a natural fit to just at least, put my toes in there when we were dating to get my real estate license. And my family has built, my dad came from nothing growing up, throwing newspapers at 10 years old to make money, to be able to put steak on his table. So I learned from him that you just jump in, give 110%. And if it's something that you enjoy, you're going to thrive at it. And I love people. So I thought this seems like a natural progression. And my dad has built, and mom and dad have built this family of generational wealth. And so I said, I think this is it. And they have real estate. So I kind of already knew about the real estate side, but not from a realtor side, from a more of a investing as families and building that legacy. So I jumped in and started learning all the nuances that I could from him. And I absolutely fell in love. What I realized, because the girls were getting older now, and what I realized when they were on their career path in school is that the schools never taught them about real estate and mortgages. Yet that's something that should really be taught about in schools, because that's usually the first thing besides a car. You usually buy a car, but the American dream is to buy a home and to own a home. And how do you go about doing that? You need to prepare, just like in life now. And the earlier, the better. And when I saw that they had all of these like fake stock markets in schools and all these fake those things, I saw that need. And then when the clients were coming, hey, I think I want to see if I want to buy a home, and getting them qualified and seeing and helping them grow that, okay, you're not ready now, but let me come alongside you and show you the tools to get you ready in a couple of years.
Mhm.
And to really pour into education into them. And that really took off our business. And that is coming alongside my husband. I quit the teaching job to be able to support him in this. And we taught at the local libraries, 101 classes. What we saw was that need was more of more agents out there are pushing them into just buy a home right away. And if you have no money, not even a penny, I can teach you how to buy a home with no money down. Is that going to set somebody up for success? Sure, you can do something, but should you?
Mhm.
Are you going to be able to sustain that? Is that wealth building? Is that helping someone become better, or is that getting them more into debt? And in
What
this
is your
society,
what is your
go
take
ahead.
on what's your take on that from um a business standpoint, and not just a woman coming out of a divorce, but if somebody had to come to you right now that was in your situation, coming out of divorce, don't have a home, blah 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 blah, and you do hear these commercials, I'll buy your home, no money down, and
Yeah.
I'm not stupid. There's got to be a wrench somewhere down that line. You're paying some money somewhere down the line. What would be the three things that you would tell somebody to do when they're in a situation like that, and they're trying to get that first home, or they're trying to start getting dabbling into the real estate market to have that first piece of property to have as collateral or something to fall back on?
Right. The first thing you want to do is to build a career that is consistent. You need to have the income built and to show on paper that you have that income. Now, self-employed people, they can have bank statement programs. There's tons of programs we can talk about. There is creative financing out there, but it's to start to build and save. So I always tell people, if you're going to have, for example, this is your paycheck, let's just $5,000 a month. On that $5,000 a month, you want to save some, of course, being a Christian, for tithing, in my opinion. also saving money for that future, and build it and put it in and start researching, start asking people, asking like myself watching this, reach out to me, I'd love to help. Find people that are helping build generational wealth, not quick wealth, but people who are really that know what they're doing, and start researching them and find out what they did and how they're doing it, and then do it even better. But naming that dollar would be the second thing. So consistency in your job, so consistency in what you're making, keep grinding. And then with that money, each dollar having like a name or having a destination for where each dollar goes, and put that in a fund for you. And there are different funds out there that build quicker wealth for you. So have that savings. And then the third thing would be is have a conversation, well, with yourself or with your significant other or with somebody, a friend, that can tell you if you're come alongside you and keep you accountable and on the right track. So I think the accountability factor, we forget that we need that, because we can start to get off track. And if you have a goal, I always say to all of my friends, family, everyone, is you put it on a vision board and you put it out there, and you every day do one more thing to help you get towards that goal. So
Mm.
build that little, we've got our phones these days, our iPhones or iNesses and all this kind of stuff. You make a video of what you want life to be and what your goals are. And then you rewatch that video over and over again, and you get rid of that mindset, that negative mindset that is telling you you can't, you won't. You get rid of it. You start talking nice to yourself and start doing stuff for yourself, and then give back to your community that way and encourage others. And those would be, I know that wasn't 3, that was like 10, wasn't it, Andre?
Hey, I want the viewers to get as much information as they possibly can. And if it's free, you can keep talking.
Yeah, exactly. I go into detail in the book about that, because for everybody else, it's really, you want to build a blueprint, but you have to be flexible with that blueprint, right? You've got to make sure that like there are certain things that are must do's and that are needs, and then there's wants. So you start to build the needs and achieve those and check those off. And when that momentum gets going, oh, it's great to see our clients do that. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
in today's economy, I mean, people aren't even looking at buying houses. They can't even afford to pay rent.
Yeah.
But it's so funny. I asked them, I said, well, how is it that people can't afford to pay rent, but you got developers building high-rise apartments all over the United States? Who's living in these places? So I get what you're saying, but today, in today's economy, is it even affordable to even think about buying a house?
In most areas, no. But that's where I say to those people, so for example, someone who is elderly and who is needing to take, maybe their health is not doing so well. And what do? They need to start creating an estate planning and start thinking about it. If they've never had any savings,
Mhm.
maybe it's downsizing. Maybe it's selling off that home that you can't live in or that is not sustaining you, and downsizing, maybe moving out a little bit farther to then put a little bit more in your pocket. Start exploring areas that may be affordable for you. But I would agree with you. It is very difficult these days. So I can empathize with people
I
that
see
it is. I mean,
there's a lot of people now that are transitioning their homes into like in-law suites, because the care of taking care of some of their loved ones is more than
yes.
building onto their house or buying another house and saying, come live with us and we can pay a nurse to come and check on you. What's your thought on
Well,
that?
we have a couple of clients right now. We actually help those too. So, and part of our generational wealth building is, once you do have a home, is thinking about, even for example, helping people buy second homes, vacation homes, and then actually turning them into Airbnbs, rentals for passive income, and
Mhm.
then having that passive income flow. Those are some of the creative ideas, but one of them, we are helping a client right now, and that's exactly it. They bought a next gen, they put in a next gen, and their families moving in with them, and they were helping them sell their home because they were in a reverse mortgage that didn't work out for them. So there are so many options for each and every person in their different scenario. It's just, don't feel overwhelmed by the weight of the economy at the moment. I
Mhm.
was there. I know. I remember having $100 to my pocket and not being able to afford, you know, McDonald's fries. And that was a treat for my girls to go through at that time. And I remember, and all you do is you start little by little
Mhm.
and set goals, put a little bit away. Even if it, like I said, I tithe, I believe that that was the Lord brought that to me and saved me. But if you're not, you do not believe as I believe, there's still a plan for you. Part of that is the next step, which is putting a little bit away. When you start to build that momentum, you feel so encouraged. You're unstoppable. So even if you're a minimum wage, you only have a few dollars, there's some ways to cut some expenses down. I know that sounds really crazy. Maybe living with a family member, maybe to be able to. I have another client that's living with a family member for the moment and building up until she can buy her place.
You know what I
And
thought was so cool?
okay.
I was um I was on TikTok the other day, and there was a guy and this girl. They were brothers and sisters, and
Hmm.
they had this house, and I'm thinking, okay, I don't know what made me keep looking at it, but they was on the tour with us in this house, right? It was
Hmm.
so cool. She had a door that she walked into, which was her house. And then if you go through this door, it went into his house, which was the bigger house. But it was like the coolest thing. But they was talking about they was trying to both save and still create generational wealth. And they had a home that really was two homes into one. Like it was crazy.
Yes.
She had her own private interest. He had his own private interest. But she says, "Oh, I go see him all the time. I just go through this door unless he locks it." And I was like, "Wow, we've." Let me
That's
before
it.
we wrap up. Let me ask you this
Yeah.
question:
Yeah.
How hard is it for what is what are what? How hard is it for someone to really understand building wealth through real estate? Because there's so many cons and things that's out there. I mean, who do you, what credentials should a person look for in a person when it comes to buying their first piece of property or real estate in general?
So you mean when a person's thinking they're ready to go buy real estate? Is that what you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah. What
like
do they?
coming
Yeah.
out of divorce, like what you just did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they trying to
Yeah.
invest some money.
Right.
How what
Yeah.
qualifies them? What qualifications should they look for in the person they're going to deal with?
Yeah. So you want to make sure that you look at references for people, really ask the questions. Like I have a whole list of questions that you should ask. You
Mhm.
want to make sure the mortgage broker you're able to help guide you isn't in it for the minute. We say that a lot. We're not in it for the minute. It's people above profit. You want to make sure that it's not about the burn and churn. It's about the quality of the person, because you're going to be with them for a while. You want to trust them. So you want to make sure their references and Google reviews. I know those are huge. However, I will tell you, really, to have a one-on-one conversation interview, just like you would, you're going to be interviewed for a job. Why wouldn't you interview for someone who's going to help you build generational wealth? Ask the second and third questions, like what they went through, to see that they've been through it. Because I'll be honest, a lot of people out there were just given money in a different way, and so they don't know what it's like to grind and to build, and what those that steps look like, and making a plan and sticking to it.
Mhm.
That is very important. But I think the one thing, it's funny that you touched on this, with the families, there's so much creative ways out there to build your wealth
Mhm.
faster
Mhm.
and to build it creatively. There's lease options. I mean, I've got so many things to share with people, that there are options out there. You have to get creative, but you have to get first, start planning what your goals are, be flexible that they may shift, and then start every single day, just one day, every single day, doing something towards those goals. And you're just going to see it's that snowball effect. We all know that, but every single person has been down and out. I mean, we've all, I don't know one person, just like I don't know one totally perfect family. There is no perfect family, right? There
Mhm.
is, everyone's got their own story and um, their own ideas of what they have for their life. Be flexible, but do what you would love. Because when you love what you do, in the beginning, you may not do what you love. No, I didn't actually love being an admin. I'm not really great at it. But guess what? That helped build because I was focused
Mm.
on what I wanted to do next. And creating that generational wealth has a ripple effect. You're going to have a ripple effect. They see you and they see what you're doing now. And where there's a Williams, that's what we say, there's a way. Where there's a Williams, there's a way here at Williams Realty Group. So we help people lay it out. And I can't tell you, almost every client that we have, I mean, we're with them for life. Now we get to see their children and their children's children, but we are in it for the long haul, and to see them just benefit. And yeah, sometimes they fall again, then we help them rise back up, and that's okay. You keep going in this life, never give up. And there's pain in your purpose. On the other side of the pain, there is so much greatness and purpose for each and every person out there. And I just can say that your next life is your best life. And if you love life like I do and love to help people, there's just so many options out there. So I really do wish everybody out there to just keep going, do research, never believe everything you read on the internet because you're going to get that. But really, ask the second and third questions out there that others just don't ask.
That sounds like a winner. Tiffany, thank you so much for taking time
Thank
out to
you.
share some educational information about generational wealth through real estate and property, even after divorce. I always tell people when somebody gives you lemons, make some lemonade. Make some lemonade.
Absolutely.
Tiff,
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, life is going to do that, right?
yeah. How can the viewers reach out to you and know more about you and your property and what you guys are doing to help men and women alike?
Yeah. So my book will be coming out, and I will have that on my all of my socials. But you can find me on Insta. I would say that's the fastest, best way, because I could give you all my tags and everything. But that one's probably the one I have the most, and it's at Tifffany Williams Luxury Realtor. That's me. I'm there, and my new documentary will be coming out, Inside Success TV, Legacy Makers. I will be sharing a little bit more about my life and future goals and what we have, and a little bit about more about generational wealth building. But I thank you so much. I love what you're doing.
Thank
Just many showers of blessings to you, Andre. You're just helping the world become a better place, and that's what it's all about. So thank you for taking the time.
No, thank you so much. Make sure you guys reach out, support, click that button, like, share, subscribe. One click can change somebody's life as well as your own. Ladies and gentlemen, like I said, this has been another, and I do mean another, exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Crayton Show.